Can you use a lens like this on every project that you do? Like, can this be your only lens? Because, you know, a lot of people just own one lens. I know a lot of people who shoot every project on like a 24-70. Which is a lot different than using this, which is a TT Artisan 11mm f2.8 fisheye lens for a full frame camera. And I'm using it on the Panasonic S5 right now. And so obviously, if you're using a 24-70, or I have a 28-70 myself, you're covering a much larger, you know, much broader range of focal lengths. And here, it's only 11mm, although I could put this camera into APS-C mode and make it more like a 16mm, which is more normal, quote unquote. But, you know, I personally think you could use this for your everyday lens if it, you know, sits with your aesthetic. You know what I mean? Like if it looks like how you feel when you share stories. Now, full frame, you know, right now you're looking at this river, and there's a lot of stuff back here that is not as curvy as it looks with this frame. I mean, in the frame with this lens, because this lens is way distorted and it makes things look strange and uncomfortable and weird and like disturbing and sometimes whimsical, I guess. But, you know, I bought it because I'm getting ready to do a project that I want to feel that way, you know. I want it to feel weird and uncomfortable and disturbing. And honestly, I'm still not sure I'm going to use this lens on the project because it's a little bit more strange or weird than I thought, and a lot of this work calls for me getting really close to the lens, and I am very distorted. But I don't know, the cool thing about this lens is that, and with most ultra wide angle lenses, especially on a full frame camera, you don't really have to worry about the focus, you know. Like, first of all, I can't get an ND filter on this lens because it's got a bulbous lens, so you can't screw anything on it. And I know some bulbous lenses like that do have these attachments, but this one doesn't. So you could get a matte box, I suppose, for it, but you can't put an ND filter on it. So I got to shoot at f/16. It only goes to f/16. I can't even get to like f/22 or anything like that. So I'm kind of limited with what I can do creatively with my aperture. And so I'm pretty much limited to everything looking like it's in focus. But what's interesting is everything is in focus, but it's distorted. And so there's a whole other kind of depth of field that you're dealing with. You know, like as long as you create foreground and background, you can still create really interesting images. You just can't mess with your aperture, you know, if you're a filmmaker, you know. If you're shooting generally at 24 frames per second and you're keeping a 180 degree, oh, is that a cop? Anyway, if you're dealing with a 180 degree shutter angle, you're staying at 1/50 on this camera, or 1/48 if you have a real cinema camera, or a camera that's capable of that. So you're keeping in the 180 degree rule, which means you're not going to have any chance to, you know, you have to shut down at f/16, which it's okay. It's like having a GoPro or something like that, except definitely don't take it underwater if you have a Panasonic S5. So can you make it look normal? I mean, how does it look to you right now? I've been talking for a few minutes, not that long. And does it seem kind of weird? It's a big hill that I'm on right now, so I can't really walk around without being afraid to fall. But right now I'm about 8, maybe 8 feet from the camera. Maybe I'm 10 feet from the camera right now, not even. I started, I'm like 4 feet from the camera right here. So I'm pretty close. So I think it looks okay. You know, it's not terrible if you get used to it, but it's certainly not normal. I mean, I shoot 95% of the time with 28mm and a 50mm, two prime lenses that I have, two vintage manual lenses. That's the other thing about this lens, is it's not autofocus, so if you're into that, you're out of luck. But like I said, if you're shooting at f/16 and you're just using, you know, infinity for your focus point at 16 on the lens, everything's in focus basically past like 6 inches or something like that. Like, you know, my hand is like 3 inches from the camera right now. It's probably pretty well in focus. So that looks kind of odd, right? You can see the distortion. And you know, when I stick my arms out, it looks weird, right? I mean, it's a strange lens, but it's an interesting lens. And like I said, I shoot 28 and 50 most of the time. Now that looks like real life. And then I'm really dependent upon my composition, my foreground, my background, my aperture. Like then I'm really making creative decisions with my lenses. And I love those two lenses. I also love the way they look color-wise. You know, they're old, you know what I mean? So they're kind of like a Helios lens. You know, they have weird bokeh and the colors are really interesting and unique. This is a really sharp lens. Like if I stay in the middle of the frame, it's really sharp. I mean, it's a great lens, you know, it's almost like a macro lens too. Like you can get really close and shoot leaves and, you know, details of things, and you can create a blurry background if you get really close to details and focus on them. You'll get a blurry background. It's not going to be like, you know, f1.2 or, you know, something crazy like that. Like my 50mm is an f1.4 and I can just obliterate the background. It looks beautiful if I use color interestingly and light and stuff like that. It's a real creative decision, a choice. And so this is creative choices and decisions, just different, you know. So let me stop real quick and put it in APS-C mode and you'll see how different it looks, and you lose a little bit of the distortion, but let me just switch it real quick. You'll see what it looks like. Hold up. All right, so now I'm in APS-C mode, which means a 1.5 times crop. So instead of 11mm, it's more like kind of like a 16mm lens, you know, or 17mm. But, you know, a lot of people have just a 16 to 35 as their only lens, and they use that for everything. Because, you know, 35 is not wide, but not close, like it's kind of real life. And so now this is 16mm, which is wide, but it's not as distorted, as you can see. You know, like it's cropped in, but also it's not as curvy and weird. And, you know, when I get close to the lens, I'm not as distorted. You know, I'm distorted, but not as distorted. I look relatively normal. And so, also I'm standing between these trees with these lights, so the light should be going in and out of my face. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that if you use this lens in APS-C mode, if you have a camera that has APS-C mode, like the Panasonic S5, like my camera does, then you can have some options at least. You know, you can shoot like this, which is different. So maybe if you're telling a story that doesn't necessarily have to be odd and, you know, disturbing and all that kind of stuff all the time, you know, maybe you want to do like a documentary style story where you want to go from a more normal feeling to that more disturbing kind of whoa type of image, APS-C mode can help. So personally, I like this lens a lot. I bought it only for this project, and I'm probably going to use it, but it's not definite. I haven't decided yet. I'm going to start shooting later this week. We'll see what happens with that, but I'm going to keep the lens because I like the way it looks. I like the oddness of it. I like the fact that it kind of pushes me to be more creative with it, to make it, you know, like it's easy to just go out and shoot anything with it. It's like, oh, that looks weird. Look at my, you know, look at my fisheye lens. But what's interesting is when you try to be more serious with it and try to shoot with intention, which, let's face it, you should always shoot with intention anyway, you know, unless you're just running around vlogging and whatever the world brings you, that's what you got. You're just focused on your face. But if you're a filmmaker telling stories and things like that, you should always be intentional with your shooting, and you should always really, really focus on your composition and your foreground and your background and your aperture and everything. And so I think you do have options with this lens, just not the options that you're used to with a regular lens, because it's fisheye, but it gives you things that a regular lens doesn't give you too. So you lose some stuff, but you gain some stuff, and it's interesting and it's different. And yeah, I'm for it. I like it. Again, I'm not positive I'm going to use it for this project because now I'm not sure that it's right, but it might be perfect actually. So I'll figure it out. I'm just going to keep messing with it over the next couple of days, and when I do finish it, it's a project about Sean Bell, and if you don't know who he is, just Google Sean Bell. Actually, you could Google Sean Bell Rock Wilk if you want, and I have done some storytelling on this in the past, so I'm just building upon that. But if you Google Sean Bell 2006, everything will be there for you. So I'm doing this to honor his family. It's a serious subject, just so you know. So anyway, that's it. I just wanted to talk a little bit more about this lens. I'm kind of really interested in it, and I've been using it over the last couple of days, and I like the way it looks, but sometimes I don't like the way it looks, so it's kind of interesting. I guess I'm trying to figure it out, and I don't want to be lazy. I want to master it like everything else. So yeah, I've been using 28 and 50 all the time, and I love wide shooting. Like, it's a thing for me. I really do enjoy it. When I used to shoot with a Sony a6400, my favorite lens was a Samyang 12mm, which was really 18 because it was a crop sensor camera. But that's kind of what this is now. You know, 18 is more like 17. But I like the way this looks. But the 11 is different for me, and taking me out of my comfort zone. And getting out of your comfort zone is a good thing, because you learn from that, and you grow from that, and you become a better filmmaker or photographer or whatever the case may be for you. And yeah, I'm getting to that point right now where I'm getting sick of hearing my own voice. So I'm going to stop this right now. So please subscribe, and please hit the like button. I appreciate you very much. And on to the next one. See you soon. Have a beautiful day. All right.